Hey guys, Chris here. Tonight I am in the Sierra Nevada and we have a story about a solo hiker in the late 1990s in the Marble Mountain wilderness of Northern California. And there, late at night, she hears something very faint off in the distance and doesn't think much about it until it's too late. That's next. Okay, we are pretty far up here in the Sierra Nevada, El Dorado National Forest. I came up over this little pass here. I got a peek off to my right, and this slopes down this cliff into the forest here, and I got this good-sized valley behind me. It's a great spot. And for our beer tonight, we have an OTG, which I believe means on the go, from the Roscoe Brewing Company, and that is out of Roscoe, New York. Check that out. And that is a limitless lager, is what it says. 4.2 ABV on that. And it is a made in the Catskill Mountains. Interesting. And here's what it says. OTG is a crisp, refreshing, super premium lager built for the great outdoors and a nod to the freedom and adventure that comes when you discover and leave the daily hustle. Throw some OTGs in your cooler, GTFO, and raise a cold one high as you leave the grind behind. I like that. Leave the grind behind. That's what I did today. Oh, and I carried this in my backpack, and that's what happens when you do that. So, and that is made in Trout Town, USA is what it says as well. So, boy, that is a very light color to it. Almost very, very pale ale. That is good. Very smooth. Besides choking me. Very smooth. It's got a nice bubbly finish to it. Not bitter at all. Kind of sparkling almost. And it kind of hangs around your mouth, kind of a hazy feel to it. And it's a lager, but it's not a heavy lager. So yeah, there you go. OTG from Roscoe Brewing Company. Cheers. This encounter takes place in Northern California in 1998, August of that year, late August. And this is where Sabrina went to go hike the PCT, Pacific Crest Trail. She was near the Etna summit, and she was within the Marble Mountain Wilderness, which that is within the Klamath National Forest, which is massive. This Klamath National Forest is 1.7 million acres, very extreme northwest California in the Cascade Range. And just the next county over, which is Humboldt County, after that it's the Pacific Ocean, and then north of there is Oregon. Very remote country, very steep, very rugged, lakes and streams, and just really wild country. And this Marble Mountain Wilderness was set aside as a wilderness in 1931. Back then they called them primitive areas. And so they didn't build roads and campgrounds, picnic areas. They just left them alone and put trails out there for people to enjoy and do some horseback riding. She's in this wilderness, really enjoying her time. She spent some time working with the Forest Service a couple years earlier, and so she really knew this area. And she felt comfortable being out there by herself, and she wanted to do sections of this 100-mile route of the PCT that went through here. And she's coming off this Etna summit and had just done a 14-mile day, wakes up the next morning, and she just feels like it's just going to be too much, and it's just not working out. It's just she's started to modify her trip. She looks at the map and she sees this little elk lake. Looks like a small lake and there's some peaks around it. And she works her way off the PCT down into this little elk lake. And she sees it's really beautiful. There's a peak behind it. And she notices there's bear sign along the shore and in the forest around this lake, tracks and scat and other things. And she didn't feel comfortable spending the night there. So she continued on, went up over this little pass and went down into this Woolly Creek drainage, this really large drainage, working her way through here. And then she comes up and she finds this ledge, not unlike this ledge that I have here next to me. And she thought, you know what, maybe I could go up on this ledge and get up and find more secure place to camp. Since she's a solo hiker, she did not want to deal with animals, especially in the middle of the night. So she finds this ledge, and it's about 50 feet wide and 100 feet deep. And then at one end, it drops off about 200 feet down into this boulder field. And then the boulder field goes about 800 feet down into the trees, just like I got behind me right here. And then that continues down into this Woolly Creek drainage. She puts out her thermarest, her purple marmot sleeping bag, and she decided she's going to sleep on the marble slab, this ledge, without her tent, and she could enjoy the stars. There was no wind and no rain, and she was really looking forward to this. Made her dinner, had a freeze-dried meal, and was watching the sunset, and knew this was going to be a great night for stars, and she remembered the moon was going to come out, and she was about 4 days away from a full moon, so it was going to be really bright that night. Now, this cliff that she was on this ledge, and then the 200-foot cliff, she had climbed before, and she said it was a 5.9, 5.10 pitch to it. Now, I imagine this is obviously straight up and down, steep, and then this is like 45, and I imagine it was something like this, really very steep. And she felt secure because it wrapped around, and then this towering peak came up behind her, and then down below was this drainage, and then off to the right was this lake. And she was kind of secure up there, kind of like I am. That's why I picked this spot. This is very similar, and there's even a drainage going to the right of me, and there was a small stream that took snow and ice off of the peak that was behind her, and it would drain, and this was about 15 feet away from her. She's enjoying the night, sees the stars, the moon's coming out, and she crawls in her sleeping bag, falls asleep. Sometime after midnight, she wakes up, and she heard off in the distance this howl, yell, ending in kind of this whoop sound. Ow! Whoop. And I can do one. It's a good echo here. I'm going to do one here. Ow! Hear that echo? She heard this sound, but it was faint. It was maybe 2.5 miles off in the distance down this drainage. And she didn't feel scared. She thought, okay, well, I'm good. I'm kind of secure up here. And then it continued to do that in different levels of volume. And in between were a few minutes, and then she would hear this yell, howl, whoop, almost a scream sound. And then every 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, she'd hear it again, but it sounded like it was getting closer. And she still wasn't concerned. She was just listening to it, but she didn't like hearing this because she didn't know what it was. It was definitely not a mountain lion or a bear. And then it started to accelerate. And it was continuing to make this sound, this vocalization of this screaming, yelling, whooping, and it seemed to be coming up the drainage. As she's laid out parallel to the stream and her feet are aiming that direction, she could just hear it like coming closer towards her. And she gets to this point, she feels like maybe it knows that she's there. And it had been watching her during the day, and now it was coming towards her. She did not like this at all. She's listening to it, and then it would pause for these long stretches, and then she would hear it again, and it would be closer. Then it was quiet. She's laying in her sleeping bag, dead quiet. Stars are just bright. It's a beautiful night. Moon is illuminating everything really well, except for down in the trees. And then she hears down in the trees on the other side of the boulder field something coming through the forest. She can hear it. And it's a good 900 feet away. And she can hear now rocks moving in this boulder field. Like this, like rocks. Things moving around, like something's pulling and going through this boulder field, and it seemed to be accelerating in its speed. She gets out of her sleeping bag and she crawls to the edge and looks down. And she can see in the moonlight this silhouette of this very large being. Looked like a gorilla mixed with a human. And she could even see, looked like hair on it. The moon was shining as it came out of the darkness below her. And it was using its arms to pull itself and drag itself through the rock field, almost to make itself go even faster. At that moment, she involuntarily urinated in her pants. She was so frightened. And she didn't think like anything about it, like I got to deal with it. She just was like, oh my God. And she crawls back, gets in her sleeping bag, and her only thought is that this thing is coming for sure to get me, and I have nowhere to go. And I'm going to be as small and quiet and silent as possible, and hopefully it won't see me or it will not want to deal with me. And that was all she had, was the turtle system, the turtle method. Just close up and lock up. And she had this very deep feeling of being isolated, all on her own, no help, no plan other than to just get in her sleeping bag and just listen and see if anything approaches and just kind of see if she can get through that. Almost like the movie Alien, on the poster, it said, in space, no one can hear you scream. You're out there, you're isolated, you're in the darkness, you're tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of miles away from help or people. And that's how she felt, in the middle of this marble wilderness, called the marbles is what they call it. By herself, middle of the night, and there's something coming towards her. She knows it's big. She knows it's got to be a Sasquatch. And now she can hear it at the base of this cliff that she's on. And it pauses. It's quiet for a moment. And there's no more rocks. There's no more sound. And it lets out this little huff, like it's been working hard and now it's got to get to the next thing. And then she can hear something scaling the rock, coming up this 5.9 slope, the steepness of this slope. And she's laying in her sleeping bag. She just lays there and she can hear it breathing, coming closer to her. And it sounded very agile, very deliberate. And then she saw it pull itself up just down from where she was at onto this rock and let out some air, just kind of exhale, and then it stood up, and she saw these very long arms hunched over this angle, and it was looking up at the peak. It didn't appear to see her. It took some steps up this little drainage and got level with her about 20 feet away, 25 feet away, and then it slowly turned its head and saw her shape, this mound of a person in a marmot sleeping bag on a marble ledge. And it made this sound like it was surprised, kind of this, "Hurr." She watched it, and it all of a sudden it just froze like a log. Just stood there with his head not moving. And she thought she had just woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and it was standing there like that, she would not have even noticed it, because it looked like a tree stump or a rock or something. But when you stared closely at it, you could see this small head silhouette, and then this big shoulders, and then these arms. And it was looking right at her. She's laying there motionless, half in her sleeping bag like this, parallel to the rock. And then it turns its head, and she can see it put its head back, and it yet let out this horrible, high-pitched scream, and then immediately took off up towards the peak, and she could hear it going through the rocks as it pulled itself up, and it was working its way towards this peak. She's laying in her sleeping bag, and now she can hear it from the top, and its sound changed. It had this deep, moaning, wailing sound. This, and it ended in this yell like this. I'm going to do one into the valley here. Quite an echo. I could hear it going way that way. It did this from the top of this peak for over 3 hours. It was about 2:30 in the morning, and about 5:30, it stopped. She laid in her sleeping bag, just terrified, hearing this, and relieved that it went past her and was on this peak, but she didn't know if it was going to come back down the peak towards her. Sun was coming up. It's 5:45 or whatever, and the light was coming up, and then it just got quiet. She did not hear any corresponding sounds, anything answering it. And it was like it was yelling out for a mate or another Sasquatch. There was no other sounds. She immediately got up after the sun just broke the horizon in the mountains, rolled up her thermarest sleeping bag, just packed it all in, and she got out of there. She checked the map, found the quickest route out of the Marble Mountain wilderness, and got out of there. This was the description that she had. It was like a large, lean gorilla-human mix. It was very much upright with a slight bend forward. The shoulders were broad and wide. The head was close to the shoulders with no real neck visible. The knees were at a 45-degree angle. The arms were extremely long and very muscular. Hair was about 3 inches in length, and she saw it as it was moving when it ran. It was stooped over, and it was using its arms to help propel itself forward, almost as if it was using them to go faster. Wow. And that feeling, I've heard that before, and I talked about this on a video a couple years ago, where I heard something off in the distance, sounded like almost a half a mile away, this movement in the brush, maybe not quite that far, and it was moving, and it continued to come, and it came right to 20 feet of my tent. And I described it as sounding like, and I used International Harvester, SUV type of vehicle, going straight through the forest except there was no motor sound. And it was just crashing through the forest. And I thought I was going to hear it kind of moving off in the distance. It came straight from my dang tent. And then I heard a couple of other sounds around me, and I blew my whistle, my storm whistle, which you can hear up to a mile away, and this thing reversed course and just went in the opposite direction where it had come from and left. And I had no idea what it was at that time, and I believe it was a Sasquatch. But that feeling of hearing something way off in the distance and you're kind of safe and secure, and all of a sudden it's coming right for you. Wow, it's just terrifying, because we all hear things out. If you're out in the wilderness enough, middle of the night, you'll hear coyotes, maybe a wolf, bobcat, mountain lion, things like that. And they don't always way off in the distance, and now they just work their way closer to you. So, all right, so I am going to go up this thing behind me here. We're going to cook this little dinner and catch the sunset here. So. Tonight we have chicken and mashed potatoes. Pretty standard stuff, but it's freeze dried and you get a nice hot meal, so there you go. And then this is the correct system to eat with. The Yuko spoon fork combo works great. Down here in this valley, you see kind of like a peninsula jutting out right here and back in here. I've had 2 encounters down here, and I've done a number of videos down in this valley here. So this is kind of my Sasquatch valley. I saw the glowing eyes, and then this is where I heard the sounds coming through the forest right off of right in there, up on a knoll in there. So yeah, pretty wild. And it just goes on and on over this way to the Blue Lakes and on up, and then Carson Pass is right over here on up to the Round Top Mountain, which is well over 10,000 feet. Chicken and mashed potatoes. Boy, it's definitely doing the mashed potato thing there. Wow, this is not going to take long at all to cook this. I just got to reheat that chicken, so. Okay, let's see what we got here. Oh, that is one big giant mashed potato. Yeah, it's instant potatoes with some form of chicken. There we go. Chicken and potatoes. Okay, you guys, I gotta head out. The sun is dropping fast on me. I do not want to be climbing down this in the dark. And so if you guys like what I do, hit like and subscribe. And I appreciate that as always. And that was fun. Beautiful fall day. And it's gonna change rapidly. So we're gonna be getting in the snow soon. But yeah, enjoy the day while you can. So, all right, you guys, we'll see you in the next one. As always, keep hiking. Good Lord. Cut.